All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Lions Guy Podcast. I've got Mr. Rob Napoli, host of the Bare Necessities podcast, entrepreneur, speaker, and new author, by the way. We'll talk about that as we get into this. But Rob, welcome to the show, my man.
Thank you, my friend. I am so glad to be here and excited about this, just to be able to chop it up with you. I remember we met, it feels like it wasn't too long ago, but I'm realizing that business and bourbon event was quite a few months ago. But I remember meeting you at that B&B event and was like, yo, like I got to connect with this guy. So I'm excited to be chopping it up and getting deep on the pod today.
Dude, when was that? Is that months ago now?
September.
Holy man, dude, that feels like 6 weeks. Like it does not feel that long ago.
I was like, oh yeah, we just met like the other day. And I was like, wait, it's been like a couple months. Like that was a bit ago. And that's why I was like sitting here. I was like, it's already December. Like how scary is the fact that it's December right now when as we're recording this, like early December. I was like, yeah, time goes fast, man. Time goes fast.
Well, when you're being productive, right? Like when you're getting stuff done and you pick your head up. That's what I tell people, like, about just their work day, it's like, man, doing what you love and being passionate about what you're doing and have a focus on being productive instead of like what you get away with not doing. Like the busier you can, more productive you can get, that day is gone, babe. Like it's gone. But,
it is.
Shit. Oh, I lose you?
No, we're good.
There.
We're good. There we go.
So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah. So I do a lot of things, right? I started this journey back in, I think, 2019. I got fired for the first time. And when I got fired, the boss, the leader that I was working for, he sat me down and he was super cool. He's like, I'm going to split your payments out so you have a little bit of a severance, so you have insurance to cover you, pay all your commission, and kind of do this like nice like little severance package thing. But the idea is like, Rob, you need to go start your own business. Like you're good, you're talented, but you're not passionate about being here. So I'm letting you go. Like you need to go find what you're passionate about and start your business. And so I did. I did just that. I started Hap Day Group. So I'm the co-founder, board member of a company called Hap Day Group. We're a U.S. go-to-market entry sales as a service business. So I have a team that sits down in Mexico that runs it operationally. We're an outsourced sales team for hire, SDR, top of funnel. We help companies with product market fit, building process, doing all these things. It's a lot of fun. We help drive those initial customer discovery calls, and we work with like new companies to do like initial testing of product market fit. We work with established companies to just be that, so they don't have to have that headcount. So that's one business unit that I run. I'm the founder of Rise Up Coaching. That's what I do with most of my time, which is a content media company focused on training and development. So we're launching some online content next year. We do one-to-one coaching on entrepreneurship, speaking, training, everything from actually working on curriculum to, doing the curriculum. I'm a speaker, go around and do different speaking gigs from panels and whatnot, corporate training. So I work for a number of corporate companies on bringing that millennial entrepreneurial mindset into the boardroom and how to attract and retain Gen Z and millennial talent and how to like leverage that in today's, great resignation, future of work, all these things. So I train on that. I work for 12 different global accelerators, coaching entrepreneurs on what to do. I run my podcast, Bare Necessities, have my book, Social Soul. So I do a little bit of everything, and it came from like where my career started in sales and marketing. I worked in the Midwest for 5 years. I met my now wife in small town Iowa. So I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. She's from small town Iowa in Huxley. And 3 months into dating her, she was like, yo, when I graduate college, I'm moving to Europe to get a master's. I don't do long distance. So either break up now and a heartache, or would you come? And I was like, fuck it, I'll go. A year later, I sold my house, left a 6-figure job, all these things, moved to Italy, got a master's, coached American football, worked for a startup, helped scale that startup globally. That's how we ended up in New York. So it's kind of a collection of things in my life that just like nonlinear experiences that happened that led to where I'm at today, doing all these different things. And, it seems like it's a bit of a crazy mess, but I've had more fun in these last couple of years doing my own thing and kind of learning what I don't like more than what I do love. that has led me to where I'm at today. So I know it was a long walk for a short drink of water, but for context sake, for your audience, kind of giving them a little bit of like, wow, yeah, it seems like a lot, but it's all kind of a collection of experiences coming together at the right time.
Yeah, dude. I love that you're exploring to find yourself, man. There's so much copycat. Like, man, I'm gonna tell you what I tell people, even about me. I go, look, I'm here to tell you what worked for me, but not to tell you to do what I did, but to inspire you to find your formula. And that's what I hear you saying. Like you weren't afraid to go out and kind of experiment and say, I don't know what I like or don't like, but I'm gonna go. Yes, I'm gonna say yes to some things and figure that out because
Mhm.
I think that's important, man. Like you got to find your formula so that you can live congruently, right? Like,
Yeah.
and you're not going to figure that out unless you're just willing to go make mistakes, willing to get some egg on your face, willing to go, yeah, that sucked. I'm never doing that again. But that fear of like, exploration, I guess,
Yeah.
holds a lot
Well,
of
and to
people
that
back.
point, one of the things I actually like to talk more about now than I ever, I still like to talk about my successes and brag a little bit, right? But I think it's more fun talking about the failures and the lessons learned. And that is something that I've really transitioned to in the last couple of years. And the fact that, I heard this quote, my aunt told me this a long time ago. And I say it to some people and they laugh and they get it. And others are like, oh, what are you talking about? And it's an old quote from Zig Ziglar, right? What is an expert? An ex, former something, spurt, a water spout, right? So an expert literally is somebody who talks about shit from the past,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of funny because an expert is somebody who is an expert. That's the stat. They mastered something,
Yeah.
but it was in the past. Are they concurrently still an expert?
Yeah.
And most of our experts aren't. They master something and they go coach on it. They're not continuously learning and exploring. And one of my foundations is to be curious, right? Because when you're curious, you learn. When you learn, you grow. You make mistakes, and that's kind of how this exploration has come. And I always tell people the same thing: like, I'm not here to tell you what to do. A good coach won't tell you what to do. Good coach will ask you questions and guide you and help bounce ideas off of. But a coach is supposed to help you answer your own questions. A mentor will tell you what to do, right? The difference between a coach and a mentor.
Mm.
A mentor can tell you what to do because they've been there, done that. A coach will help you make the best decision for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think 100%, and that's right, man. The Ronell, you mentioned where we met at his conference, like he was talking about that yesterday. There's failures and just putting them out there and learning from other people's mistakes at that, and learning from each other. But yeah, and that's it. That's why the word guide is in Lions Guide. Is that again? I'm not here to go. I've got the answer, but no, I'm gonna say I've had some success, but I'm still growing, still learning. Let's grow
Yeah.
together. Now I've got the capacity, having exited a course code. Now I've got the capacity to, because this is what I'm passionate about at this point. Like still reading, still grinding, still growing. And like a
Mhm.
friend of mine said, like, if you're not growing, you're dying. So it's your choice, right? There is no end game. There is no, I made it, right? It's just new levels, new devils, man. Like,
Yeah.
like
I, I love that. And no, I love that you call it Lion's Guide, right? And we talk about this, and it's really funny because um, I used to be big on playbooks, right? Like having a playbooks for something, having this thing, and the more that I remember I ran up in the middle of the pandemic, right as it started, we built a boot camp. We flew the plane we built the plane while flying it. We lost a lot of contracts. We had employees. We literally had no revenue for a month. Like everybody else, the world shut down. We're like, let's launch an online training, charge for it, teach people how to sell in this global business environment. And I remember my whole goal is like, what I want people to get out of it is a playbook on how to scale. By and to be fair, my business partner is like, I hate the word playbook. Like other people have playbooks. I don't think it's the right thing. And I was like, no, we're going to give them a playbook. We're going to give them a playbook. Right. And I'm thinking we're going to give them a guide. Right. And basically, we're going to channel them and having the chapters outlined, but they have to write the content themselves. Like they have to fill that in. And a playbook is the wrong thing because you're thinking the play is there, you run the play. Right. And so I quickly went away from a playbook. And now I cringe when people say they have the playbook for this, the formula for this. So much so that in the introduction of my book, the first sentence, the one thing I knew I was going to have is the first sentence of this book is going to be on brand. And this is not a fucking playbook. If you're looking to get from 0 to 1 million followers, this is not it. Right? Like that was so important to me to get away from as a coach, and like the work that you and I do is that we're not giving you the playbook. We're going to give you guides. We're going to give you examples. We're going to give you a collection of experiences to help you learn. But every story, every person's journey is impressive. Why? Because it's uniquely theirs. It's not ours. And anything you and I have ever done is not their journey. We have experience in our life that could only happen to us. And that is something that we forget to do. And so everyone's looking for that quick fix. And you have to get over that and right your own wrongs. You have to face your demons. You have to go through your journey, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Find coaches and guides along the way that will help guide you. Don't look for answers.
Yeah. What was rolling around my head as you said that was exactly that. Don't look for answers, look for experiences, right? Like, and that might be someone else's experiences, might be your own experience, but the answers that people have aren't you. Your questions are uniquely yours, right? Your situations are uniquely yours. Like when I started this, like you, I would say, like, look, out of the gate, I'm gonna tell you what worked for me then at that time under those circumstances. So I can talk about it. You can learn from it. We can explore it. But my goal is for you to find your version of whatever that is, right? And and just own it. Like, and that's a courage thing, I think. Like, I think we're afraid, to fail and it be on us. But guess what? It's all on you, whether you're copying somebody else or coming up with your own stuff. It's all on you.
Yeah.
You'll be happier. We talked about this pregame, right? Like living congruently. Like,
Yeah.
There's misery in trying to walk in someone else's shoes verbatim, follow their playbook, and be discontent. Right that's misery there. But if you are writing your own, like I call it a canvas. Like you've got your blank canvas, man. Go paint. Like go paint it, man. So.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, and that's so many people are afraid. We've come to this idea that everything has to be perfect and we can't start a company to the perfect conditions. We can't put stuff on social unless it's perfect. We can't do this unless it's perfect. And you get to this point of, well, how the fuck do you be perfect? You can't be perfect if you haven't failed. If you've never experienced loss or failure, then you can never experience joy or success. And we've forgotten that. And so we're so wanting and equipped to be perfect all the time that we don't actually know what perfect is anymore. And we're so afraid of not being perfect that we don't go experience and live.
Right. Yeah.
And it's scary. It's scary in the fact that that's where our headspace is at. But what's exciting about that is there are a number of people in this world, especially, millennials and Gen Z, that still want those experiences and are trying to figure out what is that experience. And that experience has changed. Like we think of experiences like, we always joke, I'm millennial, and it was like, I remember before the internet, we used to just get out on our bike and go run up the hill. And like, the older generations like, oh, we drank from a water hose. Like, yeah, you did. And that made you different. But guess what? We've grown, we've learned more. Like, world's evolved. So yes, that's your experience. What does that teach this about future experiences? But you have to let these kids have their own experience. We also need to stop trying to correlate so much back and forth and realize that what our experiences have changed with being hyper connected. And that's okay too, but you still need to go experience.
Yeah, right. It's and the people that worked for me, especially in the last 18 months of course, we were in a hyper growth mode. Like I was bringing a lot of people, and I had to get to a point because it was it agitated me so much. It's like, well, when I was at so-and-so, we did this. When I was here, we did that. And I used to have a rule like, man, you cannot come in. I want to learn from what you've learned, but don't talk to me about the past. Talk to me about here and now. What are you doing now? It's what's it? Les Brown says the used to be's don't make no honey, man. I used to this, I used to that. Like, talk to me about what you're capable of now, because that's what you're getting paid for. Like, I'm not paying you for. I'm paying you for where you've come and where you're going here and now. But don't talk to me about well, it's and so. Like that's there. That's then. Talk to me about now.
I used to be I used to be that. I used to be a product of that, and it was a tough lesson to learn. You know, very tough lesson to learn. But when you get over it, again, stop looking past, start looking forward, and chasing. I say this all the time, right? Chase opportunity, not money. I've chased money. I've chased opportunity. And yeah, people want to be rich because being rich gives them opportunity, but to what end, right? If you chase passion and opportunity, money will follow, right? Because when you get good at something, really good at something, and it's something you love to do day in and day out, you're gonna get rewarded for it and compensated for it the right way.
Yeah.
And and I that the big fight is like, well, you got to eat. I'm like, yeah, you got to eat, but if you chase opportunity and passion and not money, the money will follow, and you'll be richer in everything, including compensation. And I truly believe that.
It's a byproduct, right? Like people, if you chase profits and compensation, you missed the opportunity. Like the you bring that value, you put into work, that'll happen. Just focus on that. The profits and all that's secondary. And I think people like negligently get focused on the outcome and not the process when we're talking that. Like and yeah, I think it's a big mistake.
It is, and it's one that I've talked about this before with some other people. Is there's a lot of people that shout, and it's like you have to work for yourself. Like it's easier to be an entrepreneur now than ever. We know that, right? Entrepreneurship can be done by anybody, but entrepreneurship is not for everybody.
Mm,
And people yell, it's like, well, if you're not working for yourself, then you're working for someone else, right? And like I'm in this camp of like, there's two types of camp. There's those that want to follow their passion. That's my camp. Like I want to create my passion as my job. I love working. I love putting those two together. There's others, and I have family members and friends that are in the 9 to 5 camp. They are good at something. Maybe they're not passionate, they don't love it, but they're really good at something, and they can grind it out and enjoy it because what it does is offers them flexibility and freedom to go. Their passion might be slow pitch softball. It might be having a family. It might be hunting, and that job fulfills them enough to give them all the ability, financial flexibility, freedom to go do their thing. And you can be either or. We don't have to be this or that. And whatever your way of doing and chasing experiences is, go do it. I have a friend who she loves to travel, and I see her everywhere, somewhere new every weekend. And she's been working at the same company for years and is like leads a department. And she's done it because she turned that job into creating it what she wanted it to be. She can do it from anywhere. She owns that department. She'll never leave, and she'll never be let go because she provides way too much value. And that in turn has offered her the ability to go anywhere and everywhere she wants to go. And you can make that your reality. And this is the thing: when you're chasing money for money's sake, at some point it'll come to a stop.
mm,
But when you chase opportunity and you create fucking value, companies will realize that and not let you go.
mhm.
We talk about this great resignation and all these employee experiences and all these negative things, and it's like, well, we always blame the company, and I agree. A lot of blames on the company. Like company 9 to 5 is meant for you to chase the dollar, because when you chase the dollar, they can kind of control that. So it's like do this to get here versus like what are you passionate about and how can you make a bigger impact value? Because when you go up outside the system and make that bigger value and chase that opportunity experience, you'll get paid rewarded because you'll jump 3 tiers. But it's to tell every employee that I talk to, and I really have a lot of conversations with Gen Z and millennials about this, is like, look in the mirror. Have you done everything that you needed to do for that role? And if you look in the mirror and realize that what you're doing for that role is not impactful and you hate it, then it's time to step away. But as long as you can say, hey, either I've done everything I could, and or this now doesn't align with my value and I don't want to do that at the expense of my whatever morals, ethics, then But I feel like it's so quick to blame that we don't look enough in the mirror. And that is something that, when we look at all these things, long walk for a short drink of water, everyone needs to look in the mirror before and chase that opportunity and experience, because that will turn into money. That's how this all works. And you think about that, whether you're in a 9 to 5 camp or a passion camp, you're going to be able to excel with that mindset.
Yeah, and I love that you bring that up because I mean, it's crazy. We have so much access to one another, and we it's no secret. There's a lot of polarization, tribalism going on, and you're the first person I heard kind of like point out, but it is true. Like there is this weird little tribalism of entrepreneur and 9 to 5er, and kind of like I think it is I'll say it's also from wrongfully. I say wrongfully because I love you point out like it goes back to what makes you happy and how you are getting there. And you could be perfectly content with that 9 to 5 because it leads to what you want, what you're trying to get out of life or whatever case may be. But like you said, if you're willing to put it into work, and because that entrepreneur life, it's a grind. It's a grind. There's nothing fun about it. I remember it's like 2005 or six. I was 3 years into my business officially. And I think probably I was having a bad day or something, but I was at a networking event or something. I don't know what it was, but somebody comes up to me and I remember like, oh man, it must be nice having your own business. I'm like, obviously you've never had your own business before because there's not really anything nice about it. It's freaking a ton of work. It's not just like, riding around a company boat, week
Yeah.
one, it's a lot of work. But like you said, if you've got that passion, then if you got a passion for it, it'll carry you through that
Yeah.
perseverance, the
Yeah.
requirement. Right? You got to persevere. You got to be able to grind it out.
Absolutely. And yeah, I love it too because like the summer, the Euro Cup was on, and I went up to the same bar to watch all the Italy games. I'm a big Italian soccer fan from living over in Italy, and I was like, this is the beautiful thing about having my own business is that I can leave at 1 o'clock, go to the bar and watch the game. Got a little too turnt and hung over the next day, and I was like, this is the shitty thing about having my own job is that now I'm hungover and I have to work twice as hard today hungover, or piss off today and then work 3 times as hard tomorrow because there's no one else that can pick up the slack for me. And so there's the tribalism is there, right? My buddy Brian Burkhart wrote a book called Stand for Something. And when you stand for something, you're going to alienate someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we all know that tribalism works, like the tribal marketing, like there's books about it, right? You find your tribe. And I get it, and I get why you need to find that group of people. But I'm the guy I've been on both sides of that coin, and I know that there's a better way to blend all of it. And that's probably why I don't blow up as much on TikTok. I'm not saying here's how to make 6 figures, 7 figures a month in 30 days. Like that's bullshit. Like, yeah, you can get lucky, you can hit fire. There's some things, but everyone's looking for a quick win. And I'm the guy that's there. Like, that's why I wrote this whole book, The Social Soul. It's like, be who you authentically are. Stop trying to create something just because somebody told you to. Like when you become who you are, like life changes. And it may not be the sexiest thing in the world, but that's what I believe in. It's why, my podcast that I call it the bare necessities of entrepreneurship. I don't interview amazing founders to come on and talk about their companies. I'm not saying, oh, let me go get, the Airbnb CEO to be on the 200th podcast to hear the same story. The one shining moment. I want to hear from pre-seed, seed, and early Series A founders around the world and around this country that are building. And my question is, why the fuck did you want to put yourself through this?
Yeah.
And that's what I want to know. I want to know, what are the bare necessities of entrepreneurship? What do you need to know? Why did you start it? What was your journey to being an entrepreneur? And for some people, they're like, I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I never thought so. And some are like, I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. Some fell into it, and that's what I love is to hear these stories to show that entrepreneurship is and can be everywhere. But, everybody finds that path a little different. It's because they walk their path and weren't afraid to take chances.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what do you think at this point? Because you hit on this, and I don't want to let up on this because I think it's important. Like you and I have had this conversation around entrepreneurship and high performance. Like, what does it take to succeed? Like, what are some core, I'll say, habits or mindsets that an entrepreneur or someone thinking about doing it, or maybe someone who's trying to do it and failing needs to be thinking about?
Yeah. So a couple of things. One, my first is always be curious, right? Because when you're curious, you learn. When you learn, you grow. And, consume content. There's so much great. There's a book by Austin Kleon. I talk about this to everybody. Steal Like an Artist is his book. And it's basically, how to leverage. Well, don't reinvent the wheel. How do you leverage things that are out there for yourself? And it's not like you don't steal and copy, right? It's how do you take what others are doing well or not well, internalize it, tie it to your brand, and then turn it out. Because you don't need to start from zero, right? And, we talk about Simon Sinek's Start With Why. And I get kind of pissed off when people talk about that because I get the psychology behind it. But you can't start with why until you start where you are, right? And if you don't know what led you to where you are and why you're here today, because we try to pick an existential why and then fit our whole thing into it. It's like, no, start where you are. What got you to where you're standing on your 2 feet today? Cool. This is what I want to do. Now I'm going to define my why to what I want to do. And that's how you define your why that actually is going to hit. So I think being curious is really a big piece there. The second piece is mentally tough people know when to rest, right? We live in a hustle culture. I get that. And everyone's kind of like, we shouldn't hustle anymore. It's like, no, you should hustle. I'm out here hustling. But hustling doesn't mean I'm 24/7 hustling. Like today, after this, I have a buddy in town from Milan. First time in New York. I purposely took this afternoon off to spend with him. Tomorrow, I'm working in the morning. I took tomorrow afternoon off to spend the whole afternoon with him, right? But in these 4 hours this morning, I got up and I started working at 6:30 because I knew that I'm leaving after this podcast, right? So I'm hustling, but I'm resting. And so we don't have to look at hustle as a bad word, but it has a lot of negative connotations, right? So high performers know when to rest. They know when to shut it down. They also know when to kick themselves in the ass and say, I got to push through this, right? I got to persevere. So, I think being curious, knowing when to rest are two of my key high performers that I've talked to that understand that. And then the final thing, to give a third one is, and this is something that we really need to explore as a society and culture, is knowing when people work best. Not all of us, 9 to 5 was built for the factory lines during the First World War, right? Like that, all that was built to have a production system set up. But I'm a morning person. I'm that annoying guy in the morning that wakes up. Remember the old Friends episode? Yeah, when Rachel and Joey switch places and Joey's in Rachel's room and Rachel wakes up and has the guy singing good morning and she's all pissed, but Joey's like, good morning. Like, it's time to start the day. Like, that's me. Like, my wife hates it. But my wife, she's a night owl. She works best at night. Like, we need to allow employees when they're most productive, right? You don't have to be an early riser. The early bird gets the worm. Yes, it's still true to some extent, but not everyone needs to be an early bird, right? You can be a night owl and you can still do your thing. So understand when people are most productive and let them and develop systems with your teams to allow them to utilize that. Because when they do that, they're going to be more effective, more creative, more impactful, more engaged. And so high performers know when they work well and they know how to develop that routine for themselves, whatever those habits are. So that'd be my three.
Yeah, what you're saying is intentionality, right? I think that's a major breakthrough point into high performance, is when you're clear about your intentions. And I love that you're saying that, which is like, hey man, I'm taking the afternoon off, but I'm doing, you're having your day with intention, right? Hey, my guy's in town. I got time this morning. This is what's required of me. Then I'm gonna go enjoy the day. And then tomorrow, like, you've got intention set for yesterday, today, and tomorrow to get what you want. And I think that's the opportunity. I'll say back to what we were talking about, like what you want, that 9 to 5er or that entrepreneur. Because the other thing you talked about was the other side, which is the discipline.
Yep.
Like if you can have the discipline to set your intentions and hold yourself accountable, because I think, like, when you got that 9 to 5, here's the easy part. Somebody's telling you what to do, right? You don't even think about it. Somebody's going to tell you when to be, where to do what, how to dress. You don't have to think about it. Show up and do it. You're an entrepreneur. Ain't nobody telling you nothing. Nobody's telling you nothing. You got to figure it out. And so I love that you bring that up because that's a part of this. That's key. You got to be able to lead yourself and set intentions properly.
Yeah. And I love the word intentionality. I mean, my 5, I tell people this all the time, and my 5 core kind of entrepreneurial values of my business is, 1, being curious, right? When you're curious, you learn. Oh, sorry. There we go. I'm hitting buttons on my computer on accident and it was playing a video in the background, right? So start over. Curiosity, right? Be curious. If you're curious, you're going to learn, right? If you learn, you're going to build. And when you build, do that with intentionality. Whether that's a product, a process, whatever, right? When you build with intention, do it with authenticity. Be your authentic, true self, right? And then when you do that with authenticity and all these things happen. Control what you control, attitude and effort, right? When you have a great attitude and you give good effort, good things are going to happen. And that's it. I mean, when you think about that, you're controlling what you can control and you're letting go of what you can't. And you're doing things with authenticity and intentionality. And when you do that and kind of set that day, it allows you to be so much more impactful. Like I burn high, like I burn hot all the time. I can do in 4 hours what most people can do in 8. But I'm also the biggest procrastinator. I'm a gamer. Like I need to have those parameters set. Like this needs to be due tomorrow. I need to get it done. If I have 2 weeks to do it, I will wait till the last night to do it and then freak the fuck out about it and then slap something together that is like, why didn't I do this 2 weeks ago and
Yeah.
save myself anxiety? You know, so I'm with you. Like, but anyways, to your point, like those, like that has always been like kind of like entrepreneurial core values that I love to talk about and leverage, and it's kind of my motto because it just leads to putting me in the right path.
Yeah, and you hit on something because I think a lot of your people who might check in and pick this up on that the entrepreneurial side, just a lesson from the field that I think that at least a lesson I learned, and do what you want with it, is that like to the authenticity pieces. Like I saw this in my employees, and I would have to correct it, but it was like hey, did you see that what so and so is doing, like a competitor or whatever, and say, did you see they advertise this or they're doing that? I'm like, what you focus on expands, man. Like I don't know if that's working. I don't know why they're doing that. I don't,
Yeah,
like it, so to, you're right. You're spot on with the authenticity piece, and don't get caught in the trap of like chasing what other people are doing. Like
yeah,
the still like an artist thing fits here. Like if you find yourself comparing yourself to competition or what you see in advertising or whatever, um, go back to what Rob's saying here with the still like an artist, like look at it, but now go, okay, how does that apply to me? How does it fit within my goals? Have your goals.
yeah,
Don't chase somebody else's goals, man. Have your goals. And that when you see that stuff, you can go, okay, that's interesting. How would I do that? How does that fit with what I'm doing now? That's the whole still like an artist thing. You're not
yeah.
copying. You don't know if it's working. It might be a BS idea.
Yeah, you
you
might
know?
see it, and they put a lot of money behind advertising, and but it's not actually netting. And this
Yeah.
is where having that guiding principle, you need to have your goals in alignment first, because if you're just chasing, you're going to be in a rat race of going to the left and to the right and to the left and to the right. Versus this is my north star, my guiding principle, and then I'm taking these things and how do they fit in, right? And 100%, like, and that's the thing is people they always want to look at what others are doing and chase. And this is the whole influencer mindset. And so many influencers, you don't know what's up behind them. And this is why I talk about your social soul. Like you need to be real with people and not like, yeah, I live in New York City. I can go to all the cool places and go into all the rich restaurants and like take a quick picture and get the fuck out. It doesn't mean I'm dining there every night. Doesn't mean I have the bands to pay for all that, but I can sure just make it look like it because I live in New York City. I can make it look like I'm high end, right? That's not who I am. I live in Brooklyn, right? Hell, before this episode, I was telling Dale I was literally putting on my shirt because I don't like to wear sleeves. I wear cutoffs 90% of the time, and unless I have to put on sleeves, I will. And I'm OCD, so when I put on a t-shirt, like if I take it off, I'm not putting it back on. So it's like I waited to the last minute to put it on so that I can wear that the rest of the day and feel good about it. But like you'll see me in sweats and a cutoff all the time, not in a suit and tie in Midtown every day. Living in Chelsea, I live in Brooklyn, and I'm proud of it. I love what I do, and like I have grew up in the Midwest, so I'm just as much a country boy as I'm a city boy. Although all my Midwesterners are like, yeah, you're too city for us anymore, and then the city folk are like, yeah, you're city, but you're you still got that like weird Midwestern thing to you. Like we're carrying a koozie in my pocket all the time. They think it's crazy. I'm like, yeah, but my hand never gets cold. My hand never gets cold, and my beer always stays nice and cold. So
Yeah.
that's why you have it in your back pocket all the time. Every pair of shorts and jeans I have has a koozie in it. Not
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah, I
lie.
didn't know that was a country thing. I do that in the summer times. Yeah, I'm with you. And I think like, and just for the non-entrepreneur listeners, like everything we're saying, and this is my favorite part about leadership and business lessons and so on. Like, it's not just that what we're discussing, like the authenticity and in the joy of congruence, like applies just in our everyday life. Like you say, like if you even just have your own North Star, back to the 9 to 5 or whatever, If you know what your North Star is and you're just looking at everything through the lens of what's important to you and not copying and chasing, you're going to be a lot happier. And like I say, so that's just not when you're running your business, whatever, that's just in how you're
Yeah.
living, period.
Well, I mean, too, entrepreneurship is two things. It's a title and a mindset.
Mm.
And right. And I look at entrepreneurship, I always love it more from the mindset. And we call those people entrepreneurs. If you're in a company, whether a big or a small company, and you're an employee and you bring great ideas, great things to the table, and you aren't afraid to kind of rock the boat or share ideas, and you have that entrepreneur mindset, you can still go make it happen. You're an entrepreneur. And you can, this is how IBM and Apple and all these great companies are still alive, because they have amazing entrepreneurs that bring amazing ideas into these big companies and then build something around it, right? And that's an amazing thing too. So I look at it from the mindset. And in fact, what's funny is Gen Z, there's like a rift. Those that go to college, like entrepreneurs, and they're on that path. Those that they don't want to be called an entrepreneur. They want to be called content creators. They're still entrepreneurs. They're still running their own business. They're learning life lessons. They're chasing passions, right? But the title. So I always love it from the entrepreneurial mindset, because everyone can have that, whether you work as an entrepreneur and start your own business or you go into a company, and either one is great because you can still make an impact having that mindset.
Yeah, 100%. And you were the first person I heard that. Like when you and I were talking a few weeks ago, you brought up that entrepreneur, and I loved it. I'd never heard that before you. I don't know if you trademarked that yet or what, but
No, I got it from no, I stole that from Greg Larkin. So Greg Larkin is this is what he does. He helps organizations on entrepreneurship, and he
Mhm.
wrote a book called "This Might Get Me Fired." It's all about it. And yeah, I love it. I love that title, that term, and love that is an option for people.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. And it's again, it's picking where you fit, in this world. It's rolling it. And like I say, maybe it's not just a show up and do what I'm told 9 to 5, or maybe it's not on the other end of entrepreneur, but maybe it's that middle ground where you don't take on all the stress of building something fresh and new, a business, but living out that entrepreneurial spirit in someone else's organization and helping them and contributing that way. I think it's
yeah.
awesome.
Well, the one thing that's I think is really important to say, and I think you'll definitely get this kind of being former military, is that everyone can be a leader. It come back to like everyone can be an entrepreneur. Everyone can be a leader, but sometimes you need to know when to lead and when to follow,
Mm.
right? And so there are a lot of people out there that like to be led. They want to be led. They want to be bought in. They want to have the guidance, because there's two types of motivation: external and internal.
Mm.
Right? External will spark you. This is why people have January, they want to lose weight, but by the end of the first quarter, like they're not at the gym anymore, right? External will only take you so far. Internal is what separates that. It's that difference maker. And so many people don't have the internal motivation. They haven't learned it. They don't know where to find it. They haven't found that thing that drives them yet. And so they need that kind of leadership and guidance. And they want that following and to be until they find that. And so if you're listening to this and be like, well, I don't have that passion. I don't know what I want yet. That's okay too. You don't have to know. I'm 34. I still don't know what the fuck I want to do with everything, right? Like, it's okay to be in these different stages. And so I think also I just want to let listeners out there, whoever listening, knows, like, it's okay if you're following right now. It's okay if you're happy doing that and you're content. Like, you don't always have to be chasing for something, because sometimes if you're always chasing and you realize that, oh man, that was really awesome, and I was not in the moment, you're going to miss out on some great things too. So I think it's a balance of when to lead and when to fall in line, and you really need to learn that, because also if you're always trying to be a leader, your ego will get in the way and will also lose opportunities because you're too hard strung. So I always like to point that out, because it's really easy to just be all gung ho back, oh, this one mindset thing, and then you're like, well, I'm running into a brick wall, because you put that brick wall up because you kind of course corrected so far off course that you're running into the mountain and you don't know where to go.
Yeah, yeah. And there's so much there, man, with regard to just ego. But I'll add too that I think a lot of people were afraid to lead. And I would caution, with that said, like even following, just know when leadership's necessary, right? Like I think Will Link puts this out there because I appreciate a lot of his leadership content,
Mm-hmm.
lived it a lot of it, but and which is what he calls it leading up. Like if sometimes you got to lead up, you may be in a role of a follower, but you may need to and this is what I influence to me is indirect leadership. You're not directly in charge of the outcome, but you can indirectly influence, and that's a form of leadership to me.
Mm-hmm.
Influence is an aspect of, is a indirect form of leadership. So you still can't just sit there, mum, not say nothing, and just be led, because sometimes someone needs to lead, and
Yeah.
a lot of people aren't going to raise their hand. Um, and so don't be afraid to lead when you feel the times come,
Yeah.
or seek the win-win, right? Like if there's confusion in that regard, like start seeking clarity. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? What are we trying to accomplish? What's our desired outcome? Because
Mm-hmm.
those are leadership conversations. Now, when we talk about a leader, number one, you talk about a leader like cast the vision, right?
Yeah.
Again, back to influence, you can still influence a vision. If there's a lack of clarity there, you can play the role. Let's call it fractional leadership for a minute, right? Like you can be the leader or follower, or you guys can be leading together, sorting that stuff out, and kind of masterminding the effort. If you're in uncharted territories with the
Yeah.
true leader at that time, or whatever the case may be, but don't be
Well,
afraid to lead either.
yeah, knowing your strengths too, right? Like part of the building a right team is knowing when somebody's going to step up, because the leader is not the leader. Whoever is the leader doesn't know everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they rely, like, let's think about this: CEO of a company, you rely on others smarter than you to make decisions on your behalf, as the chief marketing officer, as the chief revenue officer, as the CFO, as the COO, right? Same thing with leadership. And know when it's time to step up. If you feel it on your heart, say it. Like, don't shy away from the moment. And that's the other thing, is so many people are afraid to lead because they're afraid of failure. And it kind of goes back to that very beginning point we talk about being perfect. Everyone wants to be perfect, but you can't know what perfect is until you fail. And we're so afraid to fail nowadays that we'd rather just be quiet. And that's where, especially online, because we're in a hyper connected world, that's where I think you've got to be an engager. You've got to be not afraid to be and live with intentionality and authenticity, and share what's on your mind, share with people, talk with people, engage in conversations, right? And you start doing that, everything changes. It's a good change.
Yeah, exactly right. And again, it's one of like the core values Lions Guide is establish clarity, and that's it. Like, because I feel like, to your point, right? Because I'm gonna kind of devil's advocate a little bit, and it's just because there's no right or wrong formula for all this, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
even to your point about, because I'm gonna tell you where I made a big mistake, a lot of mistakes, I think, in my last few years at Corsica, was what you said, except for, all right. Like, so for example, we started bringing in a ton of subject matter experts. I quadrupled that company in 18 months,
Mm-hmm.
my last 18 months there. So that means we were bringing in bodies, VPs and up, sweet, like we're bringing in a lot of that, what you call expertise.
Yeah.
And I deferred a lot, going, that's why we brought you in, to be the marketing expert, whatever. And I'll tell you just the other side of what you said. And because you're 100% right, but I'm going to talk to leaders out there that I took that too far. I was too humble and said, hey, well, he's the marketing guy. He's the sales guy. He's the operations guy that we hired for his expertise. He must know better than me, but I'm not feeling it. And
Yeah.
I deferred a lot, and I did not give myself credit for what I knew, because I don't know if I'm making sense here, but
No, you are. I mean,
I deferred to expertise, but I was feeling it. I was feeling, I said, man, this isn't right. Like, I'm not feeling this, but it's this, and look, I don't know if people come in the situation in the future that it's not right to defer, but I know in my situation, I was just kind of like deferring against my gut.
yeah.
And I say, like, I'm not saying go with your gut, but you can't just, if you're feeling it or you're not feeling it, you got to establish clarity. You got to dig
Yeah.
in. You got to learn more. You got to make sure you're heard. Because I felt like I let mistakes happen, kind of defer and go, well,
Mm-hmm.
he's the expert. That's why we hired him. So I
Go,
must be wrong. But
yeah. Well, I mean, let's go back to the earlier comment about what is an expert, right? Be careful when you look at an
Yeah.
expert, right? And so you do hire people with expertise to lead, right? And to make decisions for you. But as the leader, if there's not transparency and clarity and an understanding of what needs to be done in alignment, then you can't just defer, right? You have to have, in order for you to hire the best companies in the world, the badass teams, what they all have in common is alignment. Because when you are aligned 100%, it makes it easy to let your CMO make that decision, whatever he or she may think that is. When you're aligned, you let the head of operations make those decisions, he or she, whatever they think that is. If there's not alignment and you just defer to the expertise, that's when mistakes are made. So, kind of tying it all back together as a leader, this is why so many people are afraid to be a leader. It's like, when do you listen to your gut? Like, right? Intuition is a big thing. And, you read this, again, I consume content all the time, right? And there's so many instances of stories, and people are like, this was the right call to make on paper, but I didn't do it because my gut was telling me otherwise. And it
Mm-hmm.
saved lives, or it saved jobs, or it saved money, or whatever. Like, thinking about that all the time. Like, sometimes this is where, my I have an issue, like why I would love to be an adjunct professor and go in and teach courses on entrepreneurship, is that the theory of entrepreneurship is great, but no one wants to see a fucking 50-page business plan. Give it to me in 10 slides. Like, why are we still teaching a 50-page business plan, right? Theory is great. Execution slaps you in the face, right? And this is always the theory versus execution argument, that we have a lot of theories and the theory says this, and this is, sports data. The numbers tell you this. You play the game to the numbers, but sometimes you roll the dice. Sometimes the numbers say this, but you're going to go for it anyways, and you score a touchdown and you win the game. Like, you just got to know when to make those gut calls. And that happens over time. And that happens because you've made those decisions and failed, and you learn to know when that's right or not.
Yep.
And that's where experience drives leadership, because it's a
Yeah.
collection of experiences that know that you're in alignment. And as you continue to grow and go, that just becomes stronger and stronger. So I love that you brought that up. And that 100% aligns with everything we've said in this podcast, and the kind of this big overarching theme of, like, what does it mean to be an expert? What does it mean to be entrepreneur minded? What does it mean to have, trust in your own instincts and abilities? And then how does that work into whether you work in a 9 to 5, or you're an entrepreneur or a content creator, or wherever you are in your stage of life? All this stuff ties in to living in alignment with yourself, finding what gives you joy and passion. And that doesn't always have to be one and the same, right? And you don't always have to, we talk about this, you don't always have to work in your passion. You can work for your passion. You can live in your passion. You can work. You have all these different options. And the more that we realize it's not a this or that, and we are the authors of our destiny, the more in alignment you become and the more fulfilled you are. And then the riches come in whatever form that may be, monetary, relationships, etc.
Yeah, no, I think it's spot on. And again, it goes back to learning, making the mistakes, not being afraid to make those mistakes, knowing that I'm going to come out better for it,
Yeah.
because that was it. I think once I realized what was happening for me, just around that story out, what I came to was, like, I had to revisit, like, why I was bringing those experts in,
Yeah.
which was to grow and scale a working formula, right? To evolve it, not to come in and rewrite it. And
Yeah.
that's where I failed myself, is I let experts come in and go, "Hey, good job!" Like this virtual, like, pat on the head, stupid crayon eating Marine started this business and he didn't know what he was doing, and look at my MBA and whatever. And I just kind of deferred to that, going, "Hey, good job, Dale. Now let us show you how it's done." And I was kind of like, "Yeah, okay, that's all right." But at the end of the day, the reality was, like, if you're bringing in employees to help your business, you got to be clear on what that is. And
Mhm.
if that's to scale or increase capacity, but own the formula, own the formula, and be ready to evolve it and learn it. Don't die on the hill of stagnation, not growing and evolving, right?
Yeah.
But what I kept saying there at the end was like, we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's so hard on to put their stamp on something, they're ready to rewrite at the detriment of what works. So, that's just something that as leaders and entrepreneurs and whatever, that we just have to be cautious of. And that's where it goes back to like complete, just taking responsibility and ownership of the
Yeah.
outcomes. Because when you hand away your sword, man, like they got it, you gotta, and they might not know how to wield it the way you did, things like
Yeah.
that. So
It's tough, and it's a lifelong journey and knowing when to establish and let up on control,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And it's hard. It's one of the hardest things we ever have to learn. And that's part of being human and our evolution process of learning.
yeah, yeah. And I guess the only thing you can do, right? Because there is no right answer. Do I give up control or don't give up control? You have to establish an expectation with a milestone, right? It's a project. Every decision you make could be looked at as a project. What is the desired business outcome of the move I'm about to make? When do I expect to see that outcome? Because if it's just kind of done for the sake of doing, or hey, we need a CMO, or we need a blah blah blah, like we start bringing these bodies in and but don't have a clear like vision, right? And it's not just a business that needs a vision. It's every aspect of it. These
Mm-hmm.
decisions, you got to make them with a end in mind. What's that,
Yeah.
Stephen Covey, right? Like begin with the end in mind. That's not just the I'm starting a business and in the end I'm gonna have 10 million bucks and big mansion on the hill. Every decision you make, you have to kind of begin with the end in mind. And so that you have something to measure against. You said earlier, like your North Star, right? Even when
Yeah.
you're making hiring decisions or advertising decisions, right? Because I tell people, man, like, and because I want to use this to segue into this, like, don't just social for the sake of social.
Yeah.
Like, what do you expect to get out of this? Because you can drive
Mm-hmm.
yourself crazy trying to social for the sake of social. What's your
Yes.
desired outcome? So
Yes.
I'll cut you loose on that. You're off the chain on that one, buddy.
I mean, I'll keep it kind of short and sweet. I mean, when we think about today, like we all live in this hyper connected world and society, and I can sit in a room and ask everyone to raise their hand. Are you on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, LinkedIn, Twitter, Clubhouse, Marco Polo, all these different things? And you'll have different people raise their hand, and I'll be like, okay, how many of you look at this as a personal or professional? And the thing about it is that it all intertwines. And like the thing that people don't realize is unless you're like super diligent on like locking everything down, you only let certain close friends in, you're really big on like the permissions, like, cool, well, you might be friends with somebody, but I'm with you. And it's like, hey, do you know this person? Oh yeah, I'm friends with him on Instagram. Let me check out. Then I see everything, right? Like there's such an easy way to find out anything about anybody. And we've seen that happen. Because we're all living online. And so when you start realizing that your personal and professional life are one and the same, and they need to be looked at as this fluid thing of why do I use this? Why do I do this? Why do I want to be here? What am I using this for? What is my ultimate goal of being on this platform? We start defining that and understanding that. You start realizing how to leverage and be your real self, whether that's to share things you're passionate about, pictures of your family, travel adventures, your business, etc. Your personal and professional brand are intertwined, and you need to master it with that intentionality and authenticity. And I wrote a book called The Social Soul, which really kind of ties into um, this idea that we don't do a great job at understanding or blending our social presence effectively. Like I'm on Facebook because that's how my family knows I'm still alive in New York City. I don't use Facebook. I don't scroll Facebook, but I have my Facebook tied to my Instagram because that's where my family is. Instagram is a big place for me where I share kind of my day to day life, entrepreneurship tips and tricks, travel, life as an entrepreneur in New York City. LinkedIn is really big for me. I share a lot of content from my podcast, from my speaking engagements, from lessons that I've learned, failures that I've had. Right? Snapchat, I only use it because I have a family group, and that's our way to communicate. That's it, because we like using that over text because we have too many text chains going on, right? And so I'm able to have this really strong understanding of who I am authentically me online, and people can follow me on either TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn and get a little bit different flavor of Rob. And it's not just copy and paste, right? But it's my authentic self, and you get to see who I really am, the
Hmm.
good, the bad, and the ugly. I don't hold back. I'm not like going on crying and be like, oh, my life sucks. Right. And I'm not being like, oh, I'm the best thing since sliced bread. It's like, hey, here's challenges I've overcome. Here's cool shit I'm doing. Here's things that I've struggled with. I talk about imposter syndrome. I talk about all these things. And so, I wanted to create a book that was not a playbook, was a guide. And the ultimate thing is that many of us are afraid to really leverage the power of social because we're afraid of the keyboard warriors. We're afraid of putting ourselves out there and getting negative feedback. Again, we want people to think we're perfect. We're not. All right. I mean, I have an amazing wife. We have an amazing relationship. And we've been together since 2014 now. Doesn't mean our life is perfect. Doesn't mean we don't have squabbles and spats. Like, we're humans, right? I'm not going to be like, oh, yeah, my life is perfect. I have a friend who's like, he literally said, he's like, my relationship is perfect. Like, we never fight, never, like, all these things. I was like, that is so bullshit. I know that's bullshit. You
Yeah.
can't be married for 20 years and not have had fights or whatever, right? And I had another friend who like recently married who was like talking about how perfect his relationship was. So just wait. Like, I promise you, just wait, right? So the idea is that you kind of show all these things that you go through and be authentically you, right? Share those things online. And that was what about. Like, be an engager. We don't need more content creators. We don't need more influencers that share perfect. Be a fucking content engager. Show who you really are. Connect, provide, and build value. And that's why I wrote the book. And that's what I think so many of us fail to do. And if we just do that better, we can create some amazing things in a hyper connected world where, like, during the pandemic, we saw this happen. I have some of my best friends that are my personal board of advisors are people I've never met in real life. And it's because I've met people around the world who get me, who understand, who took a vested interest, and were able to be somebody that I could lean on in times when I was struggling. So yeah, I'll stop there. Like, you said the chains are off, and that was just kind of like what was on my heart about like the whole like social
It,
piece of it, right? And if my wife listens in, I don't hate me for airing our dirty laundry. Slash, every couple goes through spats.
yeah,
No,
you
I
didn't.
mean,
You didn't even right.
I joke about it because it's something that I think a lot of people can relate to. Is they have those relationships that when people look at them like, oh, we're perfect, blah blah. It's like, yeah, but not really. Like, it's okay. Like, when people don't understand is that life, relationships, job, everything we do in life is fucking hard and it takes work. And if you're not willing to be authentic and be intentional and put in work in everything you do in all aspects, then you're doing it wrong. Like, that's like a big lesson I want people to understand. That's what this social soul is really all about.
And that's the truth. You're telling the truth, and it's in a. I think we're maturing out of it, right? I think like because what Facebook was it 2007? Like I think we're in our adolescent years, let's say, quite literally figuring it out. And I think it was a lot of that, and now I think everyone's starting to be a little bit more vulnerable and just see and because it goes back to like what is technology for? It's to just like I said, why you would hire someone, right? It's to accelerate, it's to automate. So back to our word of the day, right? Like, what's your intention with this stuff, right? It's clear that you've got clear intentions on why you use what platforms, personally, professionally, and the like, and being real. And what you said earlier, right? Like, people want real. I think we're all so tired of the fake. Like, that's why we see so much appreciation. I think that's why like a podcast like Joe Rogan is took off the way he did because that dude just he's wrong, he's right. He puts whatever he feels out there, hate it, love it, in between, but he's
Mm-hmm.
real. And I think like we're all starving for real because we've spent these last, what is it, 14 years now staring at the fake, rainbows
Yeah,
and everything's perfect. And now when we see someone get on there and go, man, I just screwed this up big time, or I just went through that.
yeah,
Like people are like, thank God, because
yeah. I
I've been
mean,
watching all this other shit, going like, man, what's wrong with me? And uh,
it's really easy to fall in that trap. I mean, even so many people. We've there's so many rom-coms out there and movies of like, the one shining moment to the big thing and they overcome, they live happily ever after. And it's like, we're conditioned to think that's what love is, and that's not. Like, love is imperfect. It's perfectly imperfect. It's work. Same with all these things. So we just strive for authenticity across the board. Like, you talk about Joe Rogan's podcast. I mean, another company that's like always in the news, but the reason why they win is they're authentically just who they are. Barstool Sports, right?
Mm.
You think about I mean, there's tons of different like things, but you start seeing these things happen and seeing some of these groups and podcasts and whatever, and it's like when they just do and be and not afraid to share like the pain of losing something, like we're like, that's us too. We all feel that, and if they can show it, I can share it. And the one thing I'll say to everyone out there who always the biggest thing I get, it's like, well, if you get big enough on any platform, you're going to have haters. There are keyboard warriors. There are people out there that want to see the world burn, unfortunately. And you can not control if they post or comment on your shit. What you can do is you can control how you respond. Take a fucking breath. Breathe. They aren't worth shit to you. Don't let it burn you out. Don't try to get in a fight. Just smile and, respond or don't respond or delete it, whatever you want to do. But realize that they are not the ones that matter. Those that matter are those that connect with you, believe in you, are learning from you. And when you take that aspect of it, and that's why I say the fear of creating content, don't worry about it. Don't be a content creator, be a content engager. Engage with authenticity, share value, share intentionality, and your life will be more fulfilled across the board. And it's a great way to leverage relationships. I got people around the world that I'm connected to and talk to on a regular basis that I've never met. And it's because I've created meaningful, valuable relationships online. And it has expanded my learning, expanded my opportunities. It's provided me with so much because I put so much out there and I engage with it. And when you do that, you'd be surprised at what could happen wherever you sit in this world, in some small town or some big city or somewhere in between. If you connect and engage authentically online, you'll be surprised at what you can find and who you can connect with and what opportunities those will open up for you in the future.
Yes. Like, yes. And it goes back to what technology is for, and like it's social networking. And how long has it been around? Like your net worth is your network is your net worth. And if you
Yep.
kind of check back and go, look, okay, wow. Because why is it so easy to be an entrepreneur today? It's just at our fingertips. And so is the ability to network and build your net worth authentically, right? Looking at people going, hey, I would love to pick your brain. I would love to meet up with you and learn. Like, like look at how did we get here? Like chopping it up like this, sharing war stories, learning from each other. I've learned a lot from you ever since since the first time I talked to you. Why? Because it's networking, man. It's using technology to network in a way we've never been able to, never.
Yeah. I mean, Ronaldo lives in Atlanta. And if I hadn't connected with Ronaldo to get him a part of a program I was running, I would have never connected to Business Bourbon. I would never have gone to DC. I would never have met you, all because during the pandemic, I networked and connected with Ronaldo. And you have your own story of how you connected with Ronaldo, came into Business and Bourbon. And we met in DC because of that, because of online relationships that turned into something bigger, that turned into an in-person meeting 2 months ago.
Yeah,
Otherwise, we wouldn't
there
be
it
here together.
is.
Like, we would have never
There it
met
is,
like that.
folks.
Like,
Well, it's
how
like you
amazing
said,
is that?
your ground zero is be curious, right? Like be curious, and I think that's a big part of it. Be brave, be courageous enough to meet new people, and you've got just all the power in the world. We've really got no excuses anymore, right? Like
Yeah.
you can make T-shirts and sell them on Shopify for $20 a month right now. Like there is the world is in the palm of your hands, man. Just if it's what you're about, or again, you're trying to find what you're passionate about. Like we're so enabled right now. We're so, man, we're
Absolutely.
just in a good time. I say like and what annoys me most right now, man, is like I use LinkedIn for
Yeah.
everything we just talked about. And there's a new form of phishing, man, that these guys will send me these beautifully reciprocal, like, I love what you're doing. I'd love to meet up. And then like 30 seconds later, and oh, by the way, I'm selling blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh man, it's these guys that are like you run into at networking events that are like,
Yeah.
hey, how's it going? Who's your personal finance advisor? Who do you get
Yeah.
your insurance from? It's like, dude,
Yeah.
that's driving me bananas these
It
days.
does. I mean, and we're all so quick to get something. You need to give more than you get. Make deposits into the bank first. You can't withdraw money until you put money in, right? I mean, you can if you're on credit, but that only lasts for so long, and then you wonder why your network is completely dead. Like I've had to go through and prune my network because I was a taker before I was a giver, and now that I'm a giver, my network has changed a lot. Give, deposit those things in the bank account, create meaningful relationships, and you'll be surprised because those people that are fishing, what they don't realize is that they just potentially ruin the opportunity for me to introduce them to 5 people because I don't want to talk to you already because you pitched me out the gate. Versus
Yeah.
if you actually had a genuine interest and we chatted and I might be like, hey, you know what? Dale, you're cool. I like what you're offering. I'm good. I have somebody, but I know 5 people that might be interested in your service that we're talking about leadership training. Let me make a few intros for you. But if you were fishing, I would have been like, nah, I'm not talking to Dale anymore. Like this guy's done not making intros. Doesn't matter what even if he's the best in the world, like he just burned that bridge. So be authentic, create meaningful connections, and then let life surprise you.
Yeah. And poorly teed that up for you in a complaint. I try not to complain, but like you hit exactly what I wanted you. The value of that is just those people like who are using LinkedIn wrong. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything you just said, the minute they do, like, because I'm looking to grow my network. I want to meet people. Like, wait, hey, thanks for reaching out. Happy to connect. Here's my Calendly to have an intro call. But man, the minute they pitch, it's over, man. It is
Yeah,
over. You don't know me and you're pitching me already. Like even if you have something that I might be interested in, man, I think this is what you said. You're out, bro. Like
yeah,
it's just and because people want to do, and this goes back to like again, technology is the accelerator, but even pre-technology, start my business. Like people do business with who they like,
yeah,
who like they need the service, and then they like you and want to do business with you. That's got to be cultivated.
yeah,
So I really like the way I love the analogy of you got to make deposits before you can make withdrawals. I think
yeah.
that's just sums
Because
it up beautifully.
that's I get in this thing because I run a sales and service business, and like there's times when you need a cold email and you kind of shoot your shot on timing, and like that's where emails for versus like LinkedIn. LinkedIn is, and this is where understanding different tools and technology is that there's a time and place. Sometimes you got to pick up the phone and have a cold call, right? Sometimes you send a cold email. Sometimes you need to go build a relationship and then transfer that deposit into withdrawals, and like it's never one way or the other. But you need to understand what tools you're using, why people are there for it, how you want to connect and engage. And LinkedIn's not the connect and pitch place. Cold email, send it to me all day. If it's the right product at the right time that I didn't even know I needed, I may respond like, yeah, let's chat. But do that on LinkedIn, you're automatically out the network, right? Give me a phone call, right? I might pick up an answer and chat with you. I might not. Leave me a good voicemail. If you leave me a good voicemail, you're probably gonna get a call back. Even if that's just say, hey, I really appreciate you giving me a cold call. And I wanted to give you a call back because I appreciate you actually left a message. No, thank you. You can take me off your list. Maybe I'll let them try to talk to me, whatever. But like, I'm going to reward that because that's tough to do. I've been there. Leave a good voicemail. I will call you back. I'm not going to lie. So know where and what tools and technology you're using and how you engage with people on that. And there's a time and place for everything. That doesn't mean every technology is the right time and place. And so that's I think that to me is the biggest lesson for founders and for people starting their business, knowing when and how they want to leverage those tools and technologies and to who and how, and where automation and technology can be effective or not effective and hurt you. Understanding
Yeah.
that is a big thing.
Yeah, man. Now I love it, dude. And like what you say, you're 34. I love, dude, and I mean this with all the honor in the world. And it's like you're ahead of your time, man. Like just for as young as you are, like your experience shines through. And I love that you're serving people in the capacity that you are. I mean, you are one of those breaths of fresh air that we yearn for out here, And it was, I don't know, did we talk about this? Like when you were at Ronell's thing and they asked the question, like, there's two things I want to wrap up on because I think I learned this from you, and I want to give you the opportunity to put it out there. The person asked the question of like, well, what do I post or whatever? And you were just like, what do you post? Oh, this is what you post. Watch this. Hi, I'm at the whatever and blah blah blah, and hey, it's a great time and blah 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 blah. Boom. That's what
Yeah.
you post. And I was like, yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, just we try so hard, and I know like you know, you can scroll on social and it's annoying and everyone's like, you need to have this strategy. And yes, it's a bit of strategy, but at the end of the day, like unless you're trying to like I want to go 0 to 1 million followers, well, usually if you want to get to 200,000 followers or 1 million followers, you got to follow all the trends and do all these things. But then the problem is that those trends and those things aren't aligned with your message. The minute you start switching your message, you're going to start bleeding followers and it's not going to be an engaged network. So yeah, you can grow. You know, there's playbooks to grow to 1 million followers. That doesn't mean you're going to get the million engaged followers that you want, right? So if you're looking for an engaged community, I'd rather have less followers and higher engagement than high number of followers and low engagement.
Yeah,
So the content I'm creating is for them and for those that engage. And so it may just be picking up the phone and sending them a quick thank you message. Don't overthink it. Like, you know, we're all working from home. We know that kids are running around. We know that, you know, I live in New York. It's loud all the time. People always apologize to me when there's noise in the background. Like, if you've ever just been to New York, you know how loud it is. Like, I'm just off a major street. Like, within 30 minutes of a call with me, you'll hear 3 sirens, somebody honking, whatever, and you'll be like, "Oh shit, he doesn't care." Like, this is what he lives with every
yeah,
day,
yeah,
right? Um, and so to that point, like, just create what you feel is right. Send it over. Be you. You know, for trying to grow, maybe put a little thought into editing, but don't overthink it. And it's really easy to whip out your phone and create really good content and send something that is meaningful, like a thank you note or a video or something just simple.
yeah. And what is your recommendation to folks? This is more for the entrepreneurs getting that, building their business or whatever. We've got company pages. We've got our personal. What do you put on what?
Yeah. Company pages are great to do a couple posts per week about company highlighting things, but use your personal because, you know, theoretically, when you have a company page, you have less followers. Maybe say your company page has 1,000, unless you're Nike, IBM, whatever. Your company page say it has 1,000 followers, but you yourself have 5,000 followers. You put it out as a company post. LinkedIn wants you to charge for ads, so they're only going to show it to about 30% of that network. So 30% of that 1,000. Versus if you post it from a personal page, it's your thoughts and originality. You're going to have a chance to 300x that reach. So what you should do is post more from your personal page, tagging back to the company. Don't share company posts because LinkedIn will look at it as an ad and then it'll detract. Don't put a link in your post. In fact, now LinkedIn has gone back to text posts rank higher than even video. Always link stuff in the comments. But okay, so say, for example, I'll give you an example. Lions Guide. Say you post Lions Guide. Hey, you know, super awesome podcast, Rob Napoli. We talk about blah, 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 blah. That came up from the Lions Guide. You would put, you know, had a great time chopping up with Rob Napoli. So we just checked out. Some of my key takeaways were X, Y, and Z. To learn more, take a look over at the Lions Guide page or check the link in comments for their full episode on Lions Guide website. And then you post it, hashtag it, post it, tag me, tag Lions Guide in it, because that's going to drive eyeballs there. And the comment is say, link to full episode here, right? And you can add a little, maybe add a graphic, maybe add like a little clip, or maybe you don't have anything in there. That's going to have more, and it's going to drive people back to want to follow the Lions Guide so that people can stay and see who new guests are, right? You're kind of doubling it up, but that's how you post it from like the business side. It's kind of more like, had this great conversation. We appreciate having Rob on. But then like you, it's Dale kind of pushing back to that because Dale is the Lions Guide, but Dale is more than just the Lions Guide. So this is where you can talk about your personal experience on the podcast and like what your key takeaways were with just like the actual podcast the company is doing with it, right? And how it impacts that. And so most people fail to do that. They're like, well, I'll just share my company posts. Like, you can't. You got to have your own voice. So, you know, from a company standpoint, post a couple of times per week. From your personal, try to post daily. But if you don't want to post daily, don't. Like, post as much as you think. But key, engage daily. Take 15 minutes. Anyone out there is listening, that's the challenge I give everybody. Do this for 30 days. Comment on five meaningful comments on posts every day in your network. watch your views go up, watch your connections go up, watch the quality of conversations go up on LinkedIn. All you gotta do is comment 5 times a day, and don't just put like awesome, thank you, meaningful comments. Key takeaways: this, ask a question, because also if it becomes like super liked and relevant, it like tags to the top. If it's a big post, right, and people are seeing your face, your name, and your headline, gives you a lot of great opportunity to make great connections. So that's where I'll leave it as far as like company, personal. But at the end of the day, right, like what I preach is engagement. So here's the posting structure, but the real winner is that engagement. Are you a content engager? Because if you become an engager, that's where things win versus being a content creator. Content creation comes second. For me, I really truly believe engagement first, creation second. Why? No one's going to follow if you have nothing to know. If you're not giving value, no one's going to come and follow you. So go give value, be an engager first. Get your feet wet, get comfortable with that, and then you can start creating content.
That's it, man. Yeah, and like I say, I had heard that, but there's so much value there, man. I wanted to give you the opportunity to
Yeah.
just put that out there because I think it's great. It's something that I think a lot of people. I know I was struggling with it. That's why it came up that day, and so it's just again a testament to like your depth of knowledge here, man. And I appreciate it. So been running strong for a while. So let's tell everyone how to find you, how to find a podcast, the book, who should be getting it, who you're
Yeah.
talking to.
Well, what I'll do is I'll give you the link. So the best thing to go is actually go to my Beacons page. So it's Beacons, BEACONS.page/Rob Napoli. That has links to all my socials. So LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram. It's got a link to pre-ordering the book. It's got a link to the podcast. It's got a link to the website. So the Beacons page is where to go. You can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, all the different platforms. Anyone that wants to chat, connect with me, shoot me a note, let me know you heard me on the Lions Guide. Always happy to chat. The book pre-orders out, it delivers on January 18th. Anyone that's looking to master their personal professional brand, it's tips and tricks, and it's giving you guidance on how to be an engager first, creator second. It's a short read. Pick it up on Amazon. The Bare Necessities of Entrepreneurship podcast. You can find it on Spotify, Apple, anywhere. All in that Beacons link. But connect. Let me know you heard me here. If you want to talk, I'm always open. We'll always set up time. Love to hear from the Lions Guide crew and really love being a part of this experience and podcast and chopping up with you for this time. Appreciate so much time just to connect and chat and get deep on some stuff. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. No, I loved it. It's been an honor to have you on there. I think this is going to be one of those favorite ones that people hit me up about, man. So I glad to be a part of your journey and try to get this value you've got out there for other people to see and gain insights from. So thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate having you.
Absolutely, my guy. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Talk to you soon.